Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim, and specifically today, we're going to be going through a first-time user's guide to Thinkorswim. What is Thinkorswim? How is it used? That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be going through how to download the software, how to access it, how to navigate it, and how to get through some of the basic functions. Just at a high level, we want to make sure that this is accessible to everybody watching. So thanks for joining us today. Now, before we get into the presentation, I first of all want to say hello to everybody out there. Great to see so many familiar names on YouTube. I see a lot of new names here as well, but hello there, Michael and Trader Joe, Sandeep, Susan, Rojo, Eva, Sandra, Kelly, and on and on and on that list goes. Thanks everybody for joining us today. For you returning veterans, thanks for joining us week after week. If you are here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the live stream is concluded, enjoy the recording. That's a great way to watch these webcasts. But if you'd like to be here in the live presentation, well, this is a Wednesday webcast series. We kick things off promptly at 2 Eastern. We'd love to have you here in the live stream audience. Now, as a treat for my live stream audience members, my very good friend Barb Armstrong is joining us in the YouTube chat. Barb's going to be keeping an eye on any of the questions that come in. If I can't get to those, Barb's going to help pick up the slack for me. So thanks for having my back there, Barb. Barb and I have now worked together for years and years and years. So Barb brings a ton of experience to this. Barb and I would also like to issue an invitation to everybody listening to please follow your favorite Schwab presenters on social media. It's the place to connect with us in between the live streams when the camera's not on. So you can find Barb and me on X. You can follow Barb there at Barb Armstrong CS. You can follow me on X at Cameron May CS. Now, as of a couple of months ago, you can also follow me on LinkedIn. So you just go to linkedin.com/in. That's the typical LinkedIn prefix. And then my handle is /Cameron May CS. That'll take you right to my profile. You can give me a follow there. But let's get into this discussion. Of course, as we do, as always, we need to be aware of the risks associated with trading or investing. So as very important reminders, bear in mind that all corporate or issuer names and market data shown are for illustrative purposes only and are not a recommendation, offer to sell, or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. And any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. All right. So with all that important stuff said, let's set an agenda for our 45 minutes together today. Today, we just want to get acquainted with the Thinkorswim platform at that new user level. So the first thing I'm going to do is show us where we can find Thinkorswim. We'll talk about what it is, generally speaking, just so we can understand what we're getting ourselves into. And then we're going to get onto the platform, do a little navigation, experiment with some of the tools that address some of the essential questions that first-time users often have, like where do I find my balances? How do I place a trade? How do I track the performance of those trades? How do I manage my portfolio in there? Those sorts of things. All right, so a lot to cover here. Phil says semi-newbie here. Well, welcome, even if you're just recently joined us. Thanks for giving us your time and attention again. But let's go to the schwab.com website. And as we do, I want to talk about what Thinkorswim is. I just want to give a brief introduction to it because that's what we're going to be demonstrating today. It's software. Specifically, it's trading and investing software. Now, it's intended as a complementary suite of tools and resources that allow an investor or a trader to keep an eye on their portfolio. And there's a whole bunch of tools that might allow for, let's say, the analysis of what's going on with the markets, evaluation of stocks through technical or fundamental lenses, all kinds of nifty tools and features. But a great feature that a lot of our users of Thinkorswim really enjoy is that it has what's called a paper money version. It's a practice version. It's a simulated trading and investing environment where we can experiment with new strategies, new trading techniques, new analytical tools without any skin in the game. And we can place and follow trades in real time with essentially no risk, basically. It's just it's a practice environment. So that's what Thinkorswim is. Sounds expensive, right? No, it's not expensive. It's free. You can just download it from within your Schwab Online account. So here's where you find us. You just log into into your Schwab account, go to the Trade tab, and right here in the menu, there it is, Thinkorswim Desktop. From there, you almost can't not get it downloaded. You just click on Thinkorswim Desktop, and right at the top here, it says Learn how to enable Thinkorswim. You click that, follow the on-screen prompts. It'll walk you through the process. It'll tell you more about what Thinkorswim is, but also help you download it. So once it's been downloaded to your laptop or to your computer, it creates an icon on your computer's desktop. So when you're looking at basically your home screen, you'll see an icon that looks like this Thinkorswim splash there. And you just double click on that, it'll bring up a login screen to access the software. Now, if you don't see the splash icon, don't panic. You can also just look in your computer start menu, look for Thinkorswim and launch it right there. But when you launch it, pardon the voice there for just a moment, but when you launch it, you get a pop-up that looks like this one right here, okay? And it prompts you for a login ID, and the panic might set in. Oh no, I don't have a Thinkorswim username or password. Yes, you do. If you're able to successfully log into your Schwab online account, you just use those same login credentials to log into the software. So you just put in your ID and then your password on a subsequent screen. But one thing I do want to note as we're logging in here, right down at the bottom, there's a little toggle that's asking the user as they log in, hey Cameron, are you here to do some live trading, management of your actual portfolio, or are you here to do some practice trading or investing through what's called paper money? And we can just toggle from one to the next as we log in. So let's say I select paper money in this case, proceed with the login. That takes me to the simulated investing or trading environment, and that's what we're going to be using today. So there we go. So that gets us downloaded, it gets us logged in. Let's go get familiar with the platform itself. When you first log in, the first place it will land as the software loads on your screen is what we call the home screen. I'd encourage you to just sort of explore this on your own. It has some functions here that I'm not actually going to be demonstrating in any great detail today. But just know that the home screen is where you'll first find yourself. Now, as for the rest of the navigation, let me quickly get us acquainted. And as we do, I'm going to go first of all to the Monitor tab and just sort of park things here for just a moment, because to me and to many users of Thinkorswim, this is sort of the true home screen. This is where everything exists, all of the current positions in a portfolio. So I'll just park it there on the Monitor tab, and let's acquaint ourselves with the navigation of the rest of the software. And to me, the navigation is pretty straightforward, very much menu driven. But first of all, we have this area over here on the left. There's a column consisting of and containing things called gadgets. But generally speaking, these are tools that the investor might want to have quick access to. It's kind of like your palette when you're a painter. You have quick access to your palette here. Might be the same thing when we're a trader or an investor. These are the tools that we might want to have quick access to, that we can hide when we don't need them, or we can reveal them. Notice that I'm clicking this little arrow on this margin between the left column and the rest of the software. But we can quickly access those gadgets. And those gadgets are customizable. Now, the first gadget is actually not customizable, and that is the account info. It's just always up there. This is a summary of the account balances. So if you've logged into Thinkorswim and you're using it and you want to check on, let's say you're either checking on your paper money portfolio and you want to know the balances, or you're in your real accounts, you want to see how much they're worth, that's what this is. So the two primary lines are known as net liquidation and cash and sweep vehicle. Net liquidation is basically the total value of your account. If you were to liquidate the entire account, ask for a big check, how big would the check be, right? Now, right now, you'll notice that instead of having a value displayed, I have this series of stars. That's because I have my privacy settings on. Now, this is just a simulated account. We can see that's very reassuring up there. It says simulated trading. That way I know if I go in here and I start tinkering with tools, I place a trade, it's not real. I'm not going to lose any money. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make any money either. But it's a no-risk environment. But notice here are all the tools. Not every single tool that exists on the live platform, but the vast majority of them can be found here, experimented with, and it's a great little feature. Anyway, but this is just a simulated account. I'm not revealing anything if I turn off my privacy settings for a moment. But you'll see in this simulated account, my paper money account, the total value of the account, including any holdings, is $214,000. But of that, $114,000 is cash. So that's the way that we would look at that. So there must be about $100,000 that's contained in investments or in trades, and then there's about $114,000 in cash. Now, the rest of these gadgets are really up to the user of thinkorswim to determine what's displayed here. So for example, right now I have a calculator, I have a live news stream, I have a watch list of stocks that a trader might be looking to enter positions in. We have a scratch pad feature, which allows us to make notes for ourselves or to others. There we go. But if we want to add gadgets, we can just come down to the bottom here. I'm going to click on the plus sign, and we can just select from this menu of gadgets. So for example, if I want a quick small thumbnail chart, how about we do this? I'm going to use for today's symbol, just for consistency throughout the presentation, let's just stick with Citigroup. It's a simple little short symbol. So I'm going to type in C in our symbol box, and it gives me a chart here. So that's one of the gadgets. You can explore the other gadgets that are available there. If we want to remove a gadget, we can just click on the little menu icon to the right and delete that gadget. We can move the gadgets around. So if I want my calculator to be down closer to the scratch pad, you just use a little gear down here, and you'll notice that's moved my calculator position. In any case, that's the gadget field. So we're familiar with that. I'm just going to remove that for the rest of the demonstration. So let's click, I didn't remove it, I just hit it. Okay. Now let's look at the menus that allow access to the rest of the software. I'm just going to go left to right, top to bottom, as methodically as I can, covering as much as I can. But, oh, and by the way, Maria says, this is a great question, Maria. Is there a way to switch between live trading and paper money without having to log out to switch between the two? Yes. Here's a little revelation for many of our users of thinkorswim. So obviously I'm using the paper money version of thinkorswim right now, but if I wanted access to my live accounts, I don't have to close this out. We'd close this off by clicking the X. But instead, here's what we might do, Maria. Right click down here on the icon at the bottom, right click, bring up that login screen again, and just switch it to live trading. It's totally fine. You can do this. Now, what I would suggest you do, though, because there's some danger if you have both going at the same time and you get confused and you think you're doing practice trading, but it's on the live account. Oops, that's a big oops. Well, a big visual hint to make a clear distinction between the two is to change the color scheming. So notice what I just did there. Down at the bottom, there's a little settings icon, a little gear. You'll see little gears all over thinkorswim. Those are settings that can be changed. So I'm going to click on the little gear as I go to log in, and I'm going to change this one, my live one, from light to dark, and save that. Notice this is going to be a very different color scheming. Then proceed with live trading login. That's the way I do it. It's just one little navigational technique that I might suggest to avoid confusion between the two. But that way, whenever I'm on, I know that the white one is my practice account. I know that the black one is my live trading, and therefore no mistakes are made. Okay, there we go. Good question. But back to the general navigation. As I mentioned, this is just menu driven, like so many websites or software. We can just go through these tabs just quickly. So up in the upper left is a reminder that this is simulated trading. This is telling me that I'm currently connected to the internet and I'm getting streaming data. I can see the date and time here. I can navigate among the different accounts. Let's say that we have 3 different accounts. Maybe we have a personal IRA, we have just a normal trading account. We have a series of, maybe we have another one that's householded. Anyway, we can navigate among our different accounts using this little drop-down menu right up here. So within our paper money account, it's automatically populated with a fake margin account and a fake IRA account. So I can go back and forth between those two, fake or practice or whatever we want to call that. I can go back to the home screen here. I get messages or alerts from thinkorswim right here. We can access support if we run into snags right there, chat rooms for different users of thinkorswim here, And finally, there's another gear, another setup gear that allows us to make changes. So again, like if I wanted to change that background appearance, I could click on setups. I could change the settings for the entire application or the entire software. Let's go to that application settings and I can change. And obviously I can't go through every menu. I just want to hit some of the higher level things. But I'm going to go to look and feel, and here I could make that change to maybe a dark background again, and it would look like this instead of like this. I'm not going to actually do that. I just wanted to show that was a possibility. So navigation is very quick with those tabs up at the top. Just below that, we can see other information regarding our portfolio, the portfolio values, including our stock buying power and net liquidating value, the cash, that sort of thing. Why don't I do this? I'm going to switch this just because I think it's important to know. Let's go back here and switch that privacy feature back on. So if you're opening your account, you don't want somebody walking by and seeing your balances, you can turn that on. All right, so now let's go through these tabs right here. And this we're going to spend really the bulk of the rest of our time. I'm going to be very selective here though, because I can go in great detail on each one of these. There's just more and more and more that I would love to show you, but I think it would be a little bit too much. And on that note, I will say we're going to be covering a lot in our 45 minutes together today. Don't feel the pressure to try to remember everything. These webcasts are recorded. The vast majority, unless there's a technical glitch or unless, there are a couple of our webcast series that aren't ultimately posted to our YouTube channel, but this one will be. But just know that I do go in greater detail on specific other tools on our YouTube archives. So let me make a suggestion for you here. Before we go any further in the navigation here, if you haven't subscribed to our Trader Talks channel on YouTube yet, do yourself a favor right now. Go down, click on the subscribe button just below the video feed right now. It doesn't cost anything to do that. It only takes a moment. But our Trader Talks channel is where you can join these live streams. And we do 7 or 8 of them, something like that, every single market day. But you can also find playlists of previous webcasts. So I have a specific playlist that I'm going to suggest you check out. And it's all about understanding Thinkorswim in greater detail. If you go to playlists, here are all of our different webcast series. And right down at the bottom, just keep scrolling until you hit the bottom. There's Getting Started with Thinkorswim, and you can view the full playlist right there. And I put together a structured series of 8 lessons to help you really get acquainted with Thinkorswim. Today is basically a repeat of lesson 1. So to find those lessons, just go to the playlist and scroll down for about a second or two until you start seeing the word lesson appear on your chart, on your screen. There it is, lesson 6 of 8, 5 of 8. So we can start right at the bottom, lesson 1 of 8, downloading and navigating Thinkorswim. Well, by the end of our time together today, you're not going to need that, so you can move on to lesson 2 if you have an interest in learning some of these other tools in greater detail, like the trade tab is explored here, charts in lesson 4, and so on. You get the point. All right. Somebody just asked, hey, this is a demonstration of the desktop version of Thinkorswim. Absolutely right. There's also a mobile version, and there's also a web-based version where you can just find sort of a stripped down version of Thinkorswim, just using the internet, right? Well, I'm not talking about those today. I'm not covering mobile. I'm not talking about the web-based version, but we do, absolutely. So again, what might you do? Go to the playlists and look for webcast series, and I'd have to look around a little bit to see exactly where they are, but we have those for those platforms, okay? Anyway, scroll down through here. Here are the webcast series titles, and you just look for web or mobile. All right, but back to the platform. I want to make sure before we're done that we know how to place a trade. We know how to maybe chart a trade and maybe how to keep track of the progress of that position. So let's start right up here in the upper left and get acquainted with the Monitor tab. And just as the name suggests, this is where we would go to monitor the progress of our existing positions in a portfolio, or any open orders or trades that haven't been filled or even just filled today. So notice on the monitor tab, this is broken up into basically two segments. Today's trade activity for orders that are currently working. This would be sort of like if we placed a stop order, it hasn't filled yet. We can see our filled orders for today, canceled orders for today, rolling strategies, that's for covered call traders. I won't go into that too much. But down below, we can see our what's called our position statement. It literally is a statement of how our current positions are doing. So here's just a few example positions. Notice that we have some columns here that can help us identify the position. So we have Ford, we have United Healthcare, we have Apple. Next, we have a quantity column. Tell us how many shares we have, what we paid for those shares, what the current market value, when you see mark on Thinkorswim, that's really what that means. It's an abbreviation for the market value of that position on a per share basis. We can see how much that market value has changed. We can see what kind of a profit or a loss that position has generated since we opened it, including profits or losses for the day. Now, these are not the only columns that can be here. We have maybe dividend investors that would like to see dividend yield displayed. We might have value investors that want to see the PE ratio displayed. So these columns are customizable. There's that little gear. Anytime we see a little gear on Thinkorswim, we know that there's some settings here that can be changed, customizations that can be implemented. So I could click on this, for example, and let's maybe add how about dividend? We could add the dividend yield. Just click OK, and now we can see the current dividend yield for each of these securities. Now, next to some of these, you'll notice there's no quantity. So I can see, hey, I got a plus 100. That means I have 100 shares of Ford that seem to be doing okay. Down here, I have 100 shares of Apple not doing so well, down $930 overall. Well, what's going on with Visa and United Healthcare? If there's no quantity displayed, if we're seeing blank fields here, it means that these are not stock positions. These are actually options positions. So another navigational point is that when we see arrows, sometimes it's a solid arrow, sometimes it looks like one of these carrots. If they're pointing off to the right, that means there's something hidden that can be revealed by clicking on that little arrow. There we go. So this is now showing us, as the arrow is pointing downward, the details of our option position. In this case, we have two calls for the 18th of June, 2026, 3:30 strike. And we can see how much we paid for those. We can see that in this example trade, it's just getting hammered, down $2,400. All right, so that is our monitor position. So big question has been addressed here. How do I find the positions in a portfolio? We know where to find the balances. That's up in the upper left. We know how to find the positions for individual accounts. Or we could even select for all accounts, see all of the positions. But let's go on now to the trade tab. Now, one thing I will point out as we move over to the trade tab is there's this account statement sub-tab just below the monitor area. When we're in the monitor page, we have this row of sub-tabs, and actually we get a row of sub-tabs in each of these tabs up the top. The account statement is where we would go to see historical trades. You know, how much did I make or lose on something that I placed a couple of months ago or last year? Just like if we wanted to find historical transactions in a bank account, we would go to the account statement. That's what we do in a trading or an investing portfolio as well. All right, but next up is placing a trade. All right, let's pick on Citigroup again a little bit. Let's go to the trade tab, and let's suppose that our investor or trader is interested in buying some shares of Citigroup. I'm going to do that here in Paper Money because I know there's no risk in it. How do we place a trade? Well, we just need to type the symbol in up here in the upper left. If we don't know the symbol, we can start typing out the name, and we'll get a menu that pops up that proposes, well, is this what you're looking for, Cameron? Is it Citigroup that you're looking for? Yeah, that's Citigroup. That's the trading symbol is C. I can just click on that, or of course, we can just type the symbol in directly. As we do that, we get quote data for that symbol. And just down below, in this area that says underlying, we can place trades here. Now this one, it's not as intuitive. as maybe, let's say, a big, and believe me, on other areas of the software, you can find like big red sell buttons and big green buy buttons. But when we go to the trade tab, to place a trade to buy, we actually go to the ask price. And as we hover over that price, so right now Citigroup looks like it's trading for about $114.18, we can click on that price and it creates an order. Zinc 560 says, if you have some time, please review the watch list. I won't have time today. However, what can we do if we have a question about a specific feature? Well, watch lists are managed in our gadgets. So what we might do, go to the YouTube channel. So let me just go to the YouTube channel one more time here. I just like to go right to the home page just to show where to start from. But we can do a search right here. Let me just type in gadgets. There we go. Look at this. There's Barb with a video about gadgets, including watch lists. So yeah, that's a nice little feature. It allows us to search through the archives of previous webcasts. And you're going to find a range of these. So you can just find the one that looks like might be the most appealing to you. For example, here's Brent, using gadgets to become more efficient when exploring Thinkorswim. All right, but back here to placing our trade. When we click on the ask price, it creates a buy order. By default, it's going to be for 100 shares. We're not committed to have to buy 100 shares. What if we only wanted 12 shares? Let's do that. Nice round, not a nice round number, nice oddball number. I'm going to type that in, but this is to purchase 12 shares of Citigroup. We can select a market order if we're willing to pay whatever the market price is. There's risks in doing that. Obviously, we might not be thrilled with the price that we pay. We can put in a limit order, which means I want to pay this as my maximum price. Otherwise, forget it. I don't want to buy the shares. How about for today, let's do a market order here. And we're going to confirm and send this right now. So notice the whole process was go to the trade tab, type in a symbol, click on the ask price, and then make any modifications that we feel might be necessary right there. And we're going to click confirm and send. If the heart's racing at this point, two things to remember. This is a simulated trading environment, so no risk. Also, clicking on confirm and send doesn't actually send the order off. It brings up a confirmation page where we get one more chance to make sure this is really what we want to do. There's also this reassuring language. This is a simulation, not a real trade. Well, good. That's good to know. Buying 12 shares of Citigroup at the market price. There's no commission on this trade, but there can be on some types of trades. Now I'm prepared to send this order off. And let's keep an eye out just up here in the upper left. And in just a moment, we're going to get a confirmation. Markets are still open. There it is. We just bought 12 shares of Citigroup for $114.59, and we did that in our IRA account. So now, if I want to monitor the progress of that trade, I go to the Monitor tab, and there it is. 12 shares purchased at $114.59, and hey, we've already made 3 cents. Up, there we go. So that's our Trade tab. That's an introduction, obviously. Just a quick introduction to the basic functions. But I do want to make sure that we cover the things like, how do I find my balances? How do I find the current positions? How do we place a trade? Let's go maybe place a sell order. Let's go sell those same shares. So let's go to the Trade tab. To place a sell order, we'd go to the bid price. When we want to sell something, we might say, hey, everybody, how much will you bid for this thing that I'm trying to sell? And we sell to the highest bidder, right? So we just click on the bid price, and that creates a sell order here. We can just customize that. As long as we're doing that in the same account where the shares are held, we're just selling those same shares. Let's sell those 12 shares of Citigroup. We could put in a limit requirement. I'm going to switch this to a market order and just click confirm and send. I'm going to sell those 12 shares. What did we pay for them? We paid $114.59. I think we're going to make about 30 cents on this, maybe a little bit more. Let's send this off. And in just a moment, we'll get our confirmation. So there are a couple of the basic features of the Monitor tab, the Trade tab. As I've shown you in my lessons, I go into these tools in much greater detail if you want to see those. Now, the next two tabs, I'm not going to get into great detail in these, but the Analyze tab contains a lot of great features. For example, the risk profile, very popular among our options traders. We can follow economic data that's released right here. We can do back testing of trading strategies in a simulated historical trading environment, very interesting, using a feature known as ThinkBack. We can look at a company's fundamentals or check the earnings reports right here, all of this under the Analyze tab. The Scan tab is where we might go to build, let's say, a screen or a search for stocks or for potential options candidates using characteristics that might be important to our trader or to our investor. So if we wanted to do a search for stocks, we would use the Stock Hacker. If we want to do a search for options, we'd use the Option Hacker. Guess what? We've done videos on each of these if we want to learn about them specifically. Under the Market Watch tab, we can create watch lists. So someone asked earlier about watch lists using this feature known as quotes. We can set up alerts to get notifications when certain things happen on a stock. We can use the visualize feature, which is sort of an overview of how the different companies in different sectors are performing one against the other on the day. We can check the earnings calendar, look for stock splits, other calendar related things right here under the calendar. But I do want to spend a little extra time on the charts tool. Lots of people, very common question when I first introduce somebody to Thinkorswim is, Cameron, how do I bring up a chart? How do I add my favorite tool? How do I make some drawings and get fancy with those charts? So let's get acquainted with charts. So let's go to the Charts tab. And when you first load this up, it might come up as a blank chart. All right? So again, we can type in our symbol directly, or we can do a keyword search using the drop-down menu there. Let's just type in Citigroup again. And by default, this is going to bring up kind of a nice, clean candlestick chart. But let me show you some of these other features. Let's do a little bit deeper dive into the charting functionality of Thinkorswim. This is possibly, I don't know if I could assign it as the most popular feature on Thinkorswim, but it's got to be up there toward the top. All right. By the way, there's my friend Brian out there. Good to see you again, Brian. Anyway, as we type in our symbol, we can see the name of the company right here. We can see the current quote, how much we're up or down in dollar amount or percentage terms today. We can see the bid price and the ask price right there. We can share this chart with other users of Thinkorswim. If we have a buddy, we can click on share, send them a link, and it'll essentially load up the chart as we have it constructed on their account. Kind of a cool little feature. But this little flask icon is where we access technical studies or technical indicators. I like the little flask. It implies that we're doing kind of an experiment. Yeah, if we click on the little flask, it brings up all of these, and there are hundreds of technical indicators that chart users might employ. Doesn't mean we have to know every single one of them, but if we have a favorite technical indicator somewhere out there in a trading universe, it's probably here. How about we just add one as an example? Now, we could go down in alphabetical order. Let's say that maybe our would-be trader or investor here uses RSI. Well, we could go down to the R's in alphabetical order and find RSI, or we can just type it in up here. Let's type in RSI. There it is. Once we've selected our study or indicator, we can add that to our chart. There's our RSI. It is a typical Wilder's RSI with a 14-day data set with overbought, oversold ranges of 70 and 30. Anyway, but I'm just going to click apply here, and there's our RSI feature. We click OK. So that's how we can add an indicator to Thinkorswim. Next up, we have the chart settings feature, which allows us to make all kinds of modifications and customizations to our chart. Maybe one that's most commonly used is something known as the right expansion setting. It's kind of a big term. It just means if you look at the current candle for Citigroup right now, it's right up against the margin off to the far right. And for some traders or users of charts, they like to have some extra space there. So when they're drawing lines, they can move them out into the future. Or if there's an earnings announcement coming up, they can see a little icon that indicates that there's an earnings announcement out in the future. But here's what I'm talking about. Right now, there are 0 extra bars to the right. So let's maybe add 10. So if I type in 10 here and click apply, keep your eye over here on the candle off to the far right. As I click apply, now there's extra space right there. And as I click OK, we've made one permanent change to our setting until we go back and change it again. This will now show up an extra 10 bars off to the right of every chart. We can close down Thinkorswim, come back next time, and it'll still be there. So that's one of the chart settings. Of course, we go into greater detail in other webcasts. If you have a great interest in the chart settings, I actually dedicated some recent webcasts to just those. Just to the right of that, we can change the time frame of the chart. The D here indicates that I'm looking at a daily chart. In other words, we have a 1-year chart. That's the length of the chart, but each candle represents 1 day of trading. And I can change that time frame right here. There's a default list of favorites. So I could go to, let's say, a 3-year chart. These are using weekly candles, now indicated here. Or we can do a custom time frame. We can set the length of the entire chart right here. Let's go for maybe a 6-month chart and maybe switch this back to daily candles and click OK. So very quick navigation among different time frames. When we're a chartist and we like to use different time frames, we can do that. We can also change the style of the chart. Right now we have a candle chart. One of the modifications that can be made here under style is to change this to a line chart. Go to chart type, currently displaying candle. I'm going to switch that to line and we get a clean line chart. Let's switch this back. We also have the ability to make drawings on a chart. I get that all the time. Cameron, how do I make a little text note on my chart if I want to make a note for myself? Or what if I'm learning about concepts called support and resistance, price floors and price ceilings, and I want to represent that on my chart? Let me switch this back. I'm going to do some cleaning up here. Let's go back to a 1-year chart. Let's go back here to our little flask icon, and I'm going to click the X next to RSI, and that deletes it. So we're back to just a clean price chart. But let's say that our would-be chartist artist wants to use these drawing tools. Well, if we go to drawing tools, we get this menu of icons. It allows us to make trend lines, horizontal lines. We can position arrows on our chart, draw ovals or rectangles. Yes, you Fibonacci traders, there are all kinds of Fibonacci's that can be added. But let me just choose this trend line. Let's see. MBK 5610 says, is there a candlestick chart tutorial on Schwab? Absolutely. Yep, one of our regular webcast series is called Getting Started with Technical Analysis. And guess what? We could go to the YouTube channel and just type in the keyword candlestick, and you'll find a whole series of webcasts that we've done in the past where we can learn about not just what candlesticks, how they're constructed, but also how they might be interpreted. Yep. All right, so let's get back to our drawing here. And I'm just, again, to select from the menu, to access that menu, click on Drawings, go to Drawing Tools. Another way that we can find that menu is just down here in the lower right. I can see my active drawing tool right now is the Trendline tool, or I can click on that and choose some other drawing tool. But the way to make a drawing on a chart on Thinkorswim is just, it's 2 clicks. Be careful not to do a click and drag. It's 2 clicks. So let's say that we notice that the stock is going upward. Maybe we want to draw what's called a support or a price floor. Starting down here, that's our first click, and then move up here and do our second click. And maybe to a would-be trader, that may indicate if price comes back down again, maybe they might expect that to bounce off that floor subsequently. It's not a guarantee, but that's how a drawing is made. If we've made a drawing, we want to get rid of it, we just right-click on that and remove that drawing. Now, there are other menus over here that allow us access to manipulating, adding, or removing studies. So just know that there's another menu that can give us access to those, just arranged differently into categories. And we can also search for specific candlestick patterns or specific price patterns right here. Now, maybe one more feature that I want to show. Obviously, there are other tools that we haven't explored. You probably guys, what tends to happen when I have 400 people watching a webcast, which we have right now, there are 400 sets of eyes darting all around the platform and saying, oh, I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is. This like the Active Trader tool. Guess what? We've done webcasts on the Active Trader tool. So you can go and watch that, see how that's used. But I mentioned that when we're drawing, we don't want to do a click and drag because that's a different feature. It's a nice feature, and that is when we do a click or drag on the chart. Let's do that. Let's say that our trader is looking at this ranging price right here from what was that? About September into going all the way to December. Let's say they want a closer look at that. Well, they just go to the start of that period and click and then drag. And as they drag, notice that's highlighting that period. And when I release my click now, it's going to zoom in. And now I'm looking at just that portion of the chart, but I can access the rest by moving the scroll bar at the bottom, moving it forward and back. And when I'm done with my zoom in, a couple of different things that I can do. I can click on the little zoom features down here in the lower left, zoom in, zoom out, or we can just double click on the chart. Let me try it one more time. Anyway, I have my drawing tool activated. Let me remove that drawing and just use the zoom out feature. There we go. All right. But guys, we've actually accomplished a lot. This has just been an introduction to how to, well, I wanted to talk about what Thinkorswim is, how to download it, how to get logged into it, then the general navigation of the tool. And as I mentioned, lots of other things, lots of more details that if one has an interest in those, we can explore those using the archives on our YouTube channel. But hopefully this has addressed a lot of those initial questions. How do I find those balances? How do I find a chart? How do I place a trade? If I've placed a trade, where do I find and follow the progress of that trade? So a quick reminder here, if you would like to explore Thinkorswim in a structured but more greater detail, first of all, make sure that you have subscribed to our channel. As I mentioned earlier, just click on the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It only takes a second to do that. But you can go to our playlists here and look for the lessons that I put together on Thinkorswim. Right down at the bottom. Keep scrolling all the way to the bottom. Getting started with Thinkorswim. There's the view full playlist. And you can find the lessons right there. Notice I scrolled down through pretty quickly because we can see the word lesson pop up here. So lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. Another thing that Barb and I would suggest you do is to follow us on social media. You can find Barb and me on X. So you can follow Barb on X at Barb Armstrong CS. You can follow me on X. Here's my handle, at Cameron May CS. I'm very active on X, so's Barb. And if you reply to one of my posts here, so for example, yesterday, I asked my followers, hey, where do you think the S&P is going next? Are we going to go back up to January highs? Are we going to fall back down to December lows? And we're having a little discussion there. As you reply to that post, I just reply right back to you. It's the way to connect with your presenters in between the live streams. Now, another thing you can do is you can follow me on LinkedIn. If you don't have an X account, pop over to LinkedIn and follow me there. You can follow me on both. But LinkedIn, my handle, you go to linkedin.com/in and then /Cameron May CS. That'll take you right to my profile. And you can follow me here. I've been on X for years, and I have like 18,000 followers there. I've been on LinkedIn for about 2 months. I have like 200 followers here. So you can follow me here. Notice here's a similar post. It's not always the same, though. But guys, we've done it. I appreciate you giving me your time. We had about 400 people watching, I think, which is fantastic. As I refresh my screen over there on YouTube, I can see out of 400, we've already had 73 people hit the like button. That's very much appreciated. That it's like a pat on the back or applause to your presenter for a job well done, but it also gives a boost to my webcast in the YouTube algorithm, helps more people find these discussions so they can learn about things like what Thinkorswim is and how to navigate it. All right, everybody, thanks for giving me your time. I'm going to let you go. Barb, thanks for helping out in chat. I didn't see a survey, right? Nope, no survey. Sometimes we will get surveys, and if we see those, if you take a moment to fill them out, it's always appreciated. But everybody, have a great day. I will look for you in a future webcast. I have a new one every day of the week on a different topic, so I'd love to see you in a future webcast. I'll also look for you on social media, on X or on LinkedIn. But whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.